This is episode 96 of our Road to Unicum, and today we review the Standard B. This is the Tier 9 Italian medium tank in World of Tanks, and this is the follow-up tank to the P44 Pantera. What's really important, you can see that the stock suspension can actually mount all of the module upgrades as well as the equipment. So you'll want to research the tracks last, and it's the same for the Tier 8 P44 Pantera. I meant to mention this. So what I would recommend doing in both of these tanks is researching the Top Gun first, then the turret, then the engine upgrades, then the suspension, and then the radio upgrades last. Now, you might be wondering why I would take the engine upgrades later, and part of it has to do with the way the engines work in this game. Even whether you have the stock or middle or top engine, you can still reach the same maximum speed in the tank. What the engines definitely affect is your acceleration, right? However, I think it's more important to have good combat ability when you actually get to a place than to be able to accelerate to get there faster. And as you'll see, and this is the case with a lot of my videos, I'm very careful with my lanes of approach in light tanks and medium tanks, especially medium tanks that are very squishy like this one. Now, it took some time to get used to the Standard B. A lot of people will tell you they vastly preferred the Standard B over the P44 Pantera, and I actually found the Pantera to be more comfortable to drive, and part of it has to do with the behavior of the auto-reloader. You can see here I've got no shells in the clip. The fastest reload on the Standard B, so that's when you have 2 shells in the clip and you're loading the third, is the same as the slowest reload on the P44 Pantera. So the Pantera, regardless whether you have 1, 2, or 3 shells, or 0, 1, or 2 shells in the clip, reloads much more quickly, whereas with the Standard B, you can see I'm basically having to kind of duck out of the fight for a pretty long time until I can get 3 shells loaded. Part of the reason why, obviously when I first reached this ridge, I had 2 shells loaded, and I tried to dump them immediately on that T44 that was crossing laterally. Those are good shots to take, and I was trying to do so while minimizing my exposure. You might have wondered why I didn't just fire 1 shot and then duck back behind cover, and the reason really has to do with the fact that DPM is a theoretical number, right? Unless tanks were all facing each other on a flat field where there was no hard cover to speak of, DPM, you can easily deal with issues around reload by hiding your tank behind hard cover, right? And I would rather fire 2 shells at a tank at a time and then have to duck back behind cover, even though there's that longer reload. Now, there are a few things that the Standard B has over the P44 Pantera. One is that it has 2 extra degrees of gun depression, so that'll take you to minus 10 degrees of gun depression, which is superb. And then I think the view range on this tank is a little better with the top turret up to 390 meters, so it's easier to reach the 445 meters. And these tanks over here that are crossing, if they wanted to be careful, like this Emil, he really should have crossed on the outside where their Scorpion G went, right? And in particular because we have so many tanks with good vision that are playing this middle ridge. And on this map, if I'm in a light or medium tank, whether that medium tank has a strong turret or excellent to superb gun depression, I'll play the middle ridge. It's too valuable in terms of spotting and keeping your gun active, because you can shoot at tanks directly in front of you at the ridge. You can shoot at their tanks that are hanging out in the back, and then the M41 there is, he's crossing in a way where I know where he is, so I can anticipate where he's going to cross and get that shot. Notice I didn't chase the kill shot on him because I don't know where their TDs are. Now, 2 of their TDs have almost identical fields of fire. They're AT-15 and they're SU-130 PM. Individually, they would be fine hanging out over in that F8 area, but the problem with their deployment is they don't have a tank destroyer that's to the north, right? Somewhere over by the B or C lanes, over by like the BA to C9 area, and because of this, they haven't been applying fire to me on this ridge when I've exposed myself. I've been careful when I've exposed myself, because when I'm up there shooting, their Arties could certainly shoot me, right? And they've got 2 Arties in this battle. And what I'm doing now is flexing to the north area. And this is really important to talk about with the northwest and the southeast. Now, the problem with their ISM is, at this point, since he's the last tank holding this location, he should have been playing back a little bit more conservatively, just trying to buy time, since we were winning the middle area of the map, right? And their convoy did a smart thing, looping around that rock at B1 counterclockwise to get an easy flanking shot on the convoy. Now, I wouldn't come northwest in a squishy autoloader or auto-reloader like the standard B early when there are too many tanks, because you don't want to be forced into a brawling situation when you have no armor. But later when tanks are damaged or thinned out, or as in this case, the Batchat 12T has been firing down on these tanks and causing a lot of disruption. Right now, again, I don't want to chase their Scorpion G, and really the tank that is holding the edge here is their convoy, right? So if we get rid of their convoy, we can pinch the Scorpion B. The problem is the 12T had a good idea going on there, but he stayed too exposed and the convoy was able to pick him off. And that's part of the power. You can see our HWK is now going up to this area where he's going to be able to fire down on the convoy. That's the really interesting thing about going up that incline to the carrier, is you can shoot southeast diagonally down that incline on tanks that are mid. You can go all the way onto the northeast edge of that ramp and spot their tanks, or look down on their tanks that are mid, or their tank destroyers, or even potentially arty. If they're too close to the 8 line, you can spot them there. Now this is a really important thing. Notice I am going back to our base, and so a lot of players, if they win an area, kind of blindly keep pushing forward, in this case keep going east. But if you look at the map, our Scorpion was in a bad position. He was sandwiched between multiple medium tanks, and he was artyable where he was. He got taken out. Our 704 is in the middle of like open ground, which is the worst possible thing he can be doing. So I'm going to take my time here and get the pick on that Leo PTA. But coming back here is absolutely the right thing to do. Like, if your base is in danger of collapsing and you're a fast tank, you should come back, right? Because we can always go, their AT-15 slow, he's not going anywhere. You know, obviously their 2 arties are not going anywhere. We can take care of those guys later. But the real danger here is that their medium tanks could either cap us out, or they would easily pick off our arties, and then, you know, we've lost map control, right? 430 is a little bit beat up. What I'm going to do is come around this rock here counterclockwise. But the 430 does something I wasn't expecting. He comes up and over the rock. I wouldn't do this if I were playing in that tank. He doesn't know that I'm here, obviously, but he's in a tank that doesn't have very good gun depression, so I'm just going to sneak in one cheeky shot there to put him down into one-shot territory. I do get hit by the Type 61. That was part of the risk that I faced going up onto this hill. But what I want to do now is continue around counterclockwise and try to get the pick on that 430, or see if I can spot or put some shells into the Type 61. Now the Type 61 has got a lot of health and he's by a rock, so I need to be careful here. I don't want to trade him shots 1 for 1, because, you know, obviously since I'm the auto reloader, I want to try to get an N versus 1 exchange of shots. Now our STA is engaging their 430 kind of aggressively here. Now it's worthwhile to do because there was a potential that the STA could one-shot the 430. I was a little concerned that the STA 1 might die before he got the 430, but he did manage to finish him off here. So now it's just a Type 61. Our HWK has gone into their base and picked off one of their arties. So the other arty on their team, their GW Tiger, had alertly already moved south down the 0 lane, which is a smart thing, because if you think of, if you're an arty, you should have a bubble of friendly players around you, right, to prevent you from getting spotted. I.e., if you're in an arty, you should always place yourself in a position where the enemy tanks are going to run into your tanks first and get delayed before they can find you. Now that little bush directly in front of me will provide a little bit of vision in case that Type 61 was exposed over by that H5 area. But reading the map, my main concern right now is that if their AT-15 keeps pushing directly to the north, he's going to spot the HWK, and the AT-15 might be able to shoot the HWK and take him out. So right now I'm going to leave the Type 61 where he is. I'm going to have to assume that he's where he is, and I want to get to the middle ridge. That's why I was clicking on it earlier, to indicate that that's where I was going, because it'll provide me with a really good field of fire. The main thing I need to be concerned about is making sure that I don't get spotted by the Type 61 as I go. So notice I'm taking a clockwise loop as I head toward the middle ridge and trying to keep that last spotted location on the mini-map of the Type 61 on the outer edge of that white circle as much as possible. And my coming here is rewarded because their Type 61 had also literally gone back to their base, but he's in an exposed area. And since I'm on this middle ridge, I can always drop back down and minimize my exposure. But this is great. I get 3 shots into him, or already hits him, and then our HWK takes a cheeky shot. And now that Type 61, who was in a tremendously good position in terms of hit points, a tremendously good situation, is now two-shottable. Okay, now I don't want to stay where I am. Notice the STA is also here, and so I want to get perpendicular, create a different angle or field of fire on their Type 61 and potentially their AT-15. So I'm going to circle around to the southeast a little bit, taking this counterclockwise loop, and notice I stay below the ridge. This is so important. When you're trying to get to a better position, you don't want to skyline yourself. And thanks to the posters from a previous video pointed out that that's the technical military term. You don't want to be exposing your silhouette on a ridge. It's super visible. And that's very applicable for infantry in terms of infantry movements, but even for things like tanks, etc., you'll stand out if you're on a ridge, but if you're moving behind it, obviously they can't see you. Our HWK, by the way, has been playing a brilliant match over the last several minutes, from the time he went up that ramp and then started shooting down and applying pressure on their tank destroyers, to how he's been playing this latter part, going and picking off their M53 Arty. And then the way he's been playing this situation here, I was not expecting this Type 61 to go rushing. I thought he was going to ram kill our HWK-12. What I could have done, had I known that he was coming down the ramp, I just would have gotten his way and we would have rammed each other. It would have, I think, done more damage to me because his tank is probably, actually I don't know, it might be heavier, but regardless, I had the hit points to give because I've been careful. Now their AT-15 has a pretty high DPM gun, but unlike him, I have a lot more hit points to work with. So I can sit here and just soak up this damage and shoot those last two shots into his cupola, and this game is now won. Really nice job by the HWK in the latter parts of this match. And as you can see, the alert flexing back to our base was critical for helping us to stop them from capping and killing. We were able to preserve the life of our Batchat Arty, who very alertly moved to the northwest corner of the map. Like, good for him, in terms of finding good positioning and then making his gun relevant in late game once we had them pinned in near their base, right? Now, the other thing I should note on Glacier is I don't ever go to the southeast corner of the map early, because it's way too much of a funnel and you can get stuck up there. That's why I go to the middle, because when I go to the middle, I have the option of supporting the southeast side of the map if stuff gets spotted, and I have the option of going to the northwest brawling area after the brawling area has cleared out a little bit, and that's what I did, and helped clean up their tanks that had won that area of the map. So here you can see the real problem with this tank right after the spawn. That first shell reload takes forever, and so you might be wondering why I took the shot of the M46, and it's like, well, typically a tank's only going to be exposed for so long, and then once they start getting shot at, they're going to back up behind a rock. Now, their T-54 lightweight has made a really crucial mistake. He's way overextended himself, and you don't want to do this. He's essentially suicide scouting by putting himself into a position that he can't get out of, and he's trapped between multiple fields of fire. As a matter of fact, I don't even have to go any further to the east now. I've gotten clearly within my sights, and what's interesting is there are enough trees and bushes between us that even when I'm firing, he can't see me. Even if he spotted me, I wouldn't care. Most likely, the tanks that are on his side would be too far away to render me, and they'd have to get lucky with a blind shot to take me out. So we've had some sloppy positional play, and then you can see our T100 LT went into city and died by the church. And as a light tank, you should never go into a city area early to spot. It is of super low value, because any tanks that are there will get spotted eventually by our heavies that are moving. We'll notice in this game that two of our heavies and two of their heavies go into the valley, the 2-lane, which is a really slow area to go through because of the terrible terrain resistance, and it's a total isolated funnel. Anyway, so it's a waste of time. So our IS-7's been calling her for help, and what's really good is that our mediums actually did move up in support of him. And then this heavy tank here, part of the challenge that he has, that 277, is that he's trying to face his armor in a relevant way towards the IS-7, but because he was doing so, he left himself open to flanking fire from here. And right here, I'm going to make a really subtle mistake. So I got shot by that 430U, and part of the problem was after I killed, when I was firing on the 277, I got spotted eventually, and I may have still been lit when I was driving up along these buildings toward where the 430U currently is, and I should have been aware that if the 430U has a position, he's going to have the first shot advantage, and beyond that, I had just blown my clip, so even if I saw the 430U, I wouldn't have been able to do anything anyway. And then the 430 use armor is super obnoxious, right? You actually have to aim in, whereas he can pretty much just aim anywhere on my silhouette and he's going to penetrate me. So one of those shots missed. I took my time on that third shot, going ahead and aiming in and tracking him just to buy myself more time. And yeah, whenever possible, you want to go ahead and try to get those tracking shots there. I take my time on that shot. The second shot that I took on him earlier, I don't want to say that I rushed it, but because he's wiggling his hull, between that and my aim, the shot didn't go to a place it was going to penetrate. So there is the risk that I could have missed that shot, in which case I would have been stuck with a really long reload, right? So you want to be careful. But I was pretty confident. This tank has really good silver AP penetration, or APCR rather, is a silver round of 268. So you get the benefit of, really good shell velocity coupled with excellent penetration. And so in a lot of cases you won't really have to fire much premium ammo. Obviously you guys know I don't fire any premium ammo in random battles, but the use cases where you'll need premium ammo are significantly reduced due to the high penetration for this gun. Obviously we've got this battle well in hand because our medium supported the IS-7. Notice I didn't go into city early, right? But I went there because I noticed our IS-7 needed support. Now if you're heading toward their base, you want to go on the low ground here. You don't want to be on the high ground along where the TVP was coming along on the A lane. If you get spotted and they have tanks that are set up somewhere between B3 and A3 or A2, you'll get shot as you're crossing. So you want to kind of go in the low ground where they can't see you, or even if they do see you, they're only going to see a sliver of your turret. And that's the best way to approach that base. It can definitely be a tough situation if they've got snipers kind of dug in there, get that tracking shot. You want to land tracking shots whenever possible. Obviously it immobilizes your opponent. It can cause them to burn their repair kit. It will also help your friendlies when they shoot a stationary target, and then you will get the benefit of any tracking damage, which is really helpful both from an experience perspective and in terms of trying to improve your percentage for getting marks of excellence on a tank. So I am probably going to cover the 5, 6, or 7. I haven't decided which of the Italian mediums in this line, and then probably take a look at the Emil 2 in a later video. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care.